3, 4. Let me take a look at what do you got. I pull into the speculation station a lot. Speculation station.
Hello.
I'm Will.
I'm Tom.
We are the Speculation Station podcast.
Yes, and we're not actually a podcast ourselves. We are people.
We're real human people who do a podcast.
Yeah. So this is the Speculation Station podcast.
We are not it, but in a way we are. I'm really glad you verified that, because people out there be like, are these people a podcast or are they carbon-based life forms?
Ah!
So, welcome. We're carbon-based life forms with a podcast, and every week one of us brings in a mystery object. This week it's me, Will, and we speculate upon it, generally from this guy. He speculates.
Yeah.
I interrogate. We ask questions.
Yeah, and I come up with a topic for us to attack, depending on what on earth he brings in.
Yes.
So I'll choose whatever we're talking about.
Speaking of which,
oh gosh,
close one's eyes, hold out both hands. I'd like you to separate them. That much is perfect. This bit is going in this hand, and this bit's going in this hand. Oh, it's come out a little bit. Here we go. Put the bits close together. There you go. What's that?
It's a pocket watch.
Okay, it is. Open your eyes.
Oh, it's a pocket watch. Oh, this is beautiful. I like, and what's really awesome about it is the fact that you can see inside the time when the pocket watch is closed, which is most pocket watches you can't do that.
That's true. And not only can you see the time, but you can see the mechanism of the watch itself, which is rather beautiful. Yes.
Look at that. For all you at home who are watching on video, looks absolutely gorgeous.
Have you seen this in my possession before?
I believe I might have done, yeah. Maybe at a wedding or something.
Well, it came from a wedding. My brother's wedding to his lovely wife.
Oh, okay.
At the time, she wasn't his wife, of course. I was a groomsman, and as a present to all of us groomsmen and his best men, he gave us pocket watches. Which was one of the best goddamn presents for someone attending a wedding I've ever seen.
Oh, looks like somebody's getting a message.
Maybe you want to turn that off.
So, I think what's also, I'm very inappropriately dressed. If I was wearing a waistcoat.
You're wearing a sports outfit, yes. A silver classic pocket watch doesn't quite.
It doesn't really work.
Hang it from your hood.
That doesn't feel very good.
It doesn't. But either way, you've managed to
this is wonderful.
It.
This is wonderful. So,
what does it make you think of?
Well, immediately it makes me think of Willy Fogg. I'm going to say it.
Who is?
Of a famous Jules Verne novel, which most of you guys
will have heard of,
which is Around the World in 80 Days.
Classic.
And Phileas Fogg, not Willy Fogg. Willy Fogg is the kids' cartoon, which I believe is Spanish, actually.
Yes, there was also another cartoon. It was Phileas Frog, and he was a frog.
Oh, that's hilarious. So, I think the lovely basic idea of this is it makes me think of somebody who really cares about the time, maybe a kind of adventure, but he was really obsessed with the time. So immediately the topic of time is immediately coming up. Like maybe you could
time travel, adventure,
potentially time travel, potentially adventure.
Not time travel, time comma travel.
Yeah, adventure, measure. Yeah, maybe even. It makes me think of the Age of Sail a touch a little bit as well. What with the water clocks and all that kind of stuff.
Let's encapsulate that in the classic age of exploration.
Okay.
Exploration and invention. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In which case, I'll decide on a kind of an approach to this. Let's think of a classic exploration challenge.
Oh.
So Around the World in 80 Days was a challenge. They challenged Phileas Fogg to travel around the entire world in 80 days and get back to London within that time. So we live in a very connected modern world, of course. I mean, every era of humans have lived in the so-called modern world, but we really truly do live in a very modern connected world.
They'll seem old-fashioned in a few years, don't we?
Of course, as it will always do. And people will look at us in our clothes and go, what were they thinking?
What were they wearing?
Why was he wearing sports gear? And the other guy was wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
Why are they twats?
So, first of all, what would be the modern equivalent of Phileas Fogg's Around the World in 80 Days challenge? What would you challenge someone with?
Well, they do similar things, like there's a boat race that actually goes around the world in 80 days. I think it's more than 80 days. It's much quicker these days, I think. I might be completely mistaken. There's definitely boat challenges. So I think, and another similar one that makes me think of is that road racing that goes across Europe? It's got a very special name.
Oh, there's the Gumball Rally.
That's it. The Gumball Rally is what I'm thinking of. That is very cool and fashionable and kind of sexy. It also makes me think of the Orient Express as well. in that kind of area, those kind of, trains that connect up continents and stuff like that.
Oh, love to go on the Orient Express.
If we're talking about modern adventuring and challenges, the obvious answer, we've only been to the moon once or twice.
Oh.
Right? So now we're getting corporations, I guess SpaceX doing that, and I think Boeing do a lot of this kind of stuff, which is the idea of who can get to the moon first, who can get to Mars first.
Yes, who can provide the most efficient and cost-worthy transport to XYZ place.
Like those robots which robot can play football the best? So it's almost like there's a lot of, but I think in terms of exploration, space or under the sea, deep under the ocean are the obvious modern eras of exploration. If we're to do a modern around the world in 80 days. So is it to the bottom of the sea and back? What's it called? 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yes, another Jules Verne, right?
Which is fantastic.
So let's keep it closer to home and do Under the Sea. Although, ironically, as I'm sure a lot of our audience will be aware of, we know more about the moon than we do about the underneath of our oceans.
The depths of the ocean.
Thank you. Underneath was a bit of a misnomer. So let's make it kind of storified as well. So it's not just to reach a certain place or discover a certain thing under the ocean, but to establish something. So let's say the first person to establish an underwater colony somewhere.
Yes.
Right, we're writing that down. He's writing it down.
Underwater colony. Yeah.
Okay.
So I like the underwater colony.
Okay, so let's say first to reach a certain population.
I like that.
At a certain depth, shall we say?
So let's say Dunbar's number roughly. So let's say 200 people.
Okay.
A colony of 200, which is a small village.
Okay, so a colony of 200 people at a depth of 200 metres, maybe? It's not too much, not too little?
Or unless you want to say 20,000 leagues.
How much was a league? Right? It's like a furlong. Nobody knows this stuff. So a population around 200...
I'm going to say a mile under the sea, so it's properly low.
Oh, wow, that is deep. Okay.
So, properly at the bottom of the ocean,
So 200
maybe
people...
Maybe a kilometre, actually.
Yes, kilometres is better. Say 1 kilometre deep. Now, if we were more knowledgeable, we'd probably be able to say what kind of things existed at a kilometre deep. I know, for example, that the deepest place on the ocean floor, the Mariana Trench, is something like 6,000 metres. So about 6 kilometres. So a kilometre isn't anywhere near that crushing depth, but it's still a considerable distance.
Yeah, so I love this idea. Already, by the way, loads of astronauts train
underwater
by living in underwater closed environments.
Yes, I remember
for a long
seeing videos of the esteemed Commander Hadfield,
of course,
underwater, and he did an experiment with a Coke can showing that even underwater it won't over pressurise and explode at that pressure. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about who are the modern Phileas Fogg, Francis Drake equivalents alive right now who might be equipped to start an undersea colony.
There's the obvious answer. There's fucking Musk.
Musk, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes pronounced Elon.
When he's not smoking weed.
Oh no, he went on a podcast and smoked marijuana legally. I don't know if he is fit to run a company.
Of all the things that humans do behind closed doors, like have nefarious sexual appetites or drink too much, right? We all know it goes on. But the one guy who does it not behind closed doors, behind open doors, openly on a podcast.
And he's very open about his feelings about it. Yeah.
Like literally, the stock for Tesla dropped after he smoked weed on Joe Rogan's podcast.
But if he drank whiskey, no problem.
No problem. One intoxicant that we accept, fine. Another intoxicant that we still don't accept societally. I see you're gangling for the whiskey bottle right now.
I feel like I should top up my whiskey now.
You're going to give me a little bit extra. I've been kind of janking it.
So let's talk about
Elon Musk. I guess there are people with political motivations to do it as well. So people like Putin would say,
100%.
We want Russians living under the sea.
And certainly Xi Jinping, for the same reasons.
The Chinese premier, right?
He's a very interesting character.
Not comparable to Winnie
But also
the
there's Peter Thiel, Musk's partner in PayPal.
Yeah.
He's kind of a bit of a mover and shaker. I don't know much about him.
Jeff Bezos.
The
Zucks.
Oh no, he had an affair.
Oh no, he's a human being. Yes, Zuckerberg.
Although I don't see that from Zuck. I just don't see a lot of that kind of thing.
He might fund it, but he might not do it himself.
I don't
maybe
feel
Gates is more likely to do it.
Gates feels a lot more along the right lines.
Now,
it's definitely, we're all talking billionaires or big league politicians here.
Let's take one person for now. let's take Musk.
Because he's the obvious answer.
Actually provably done similar
And he's
thing.
got that kind of attitude.
He's got that get up and go attitude and fuck everyone else
And
attitude.
if you don't like Musk, well, you don't like Musk and that's your problem, not mine.
Yes, that's your problem, not his. He's fine, yes. So, Musk wants to win this challenge. He wants to be the first person to establish.
So he's our Willy Fogg.
He's our Willy Fogg, exactly. E-Musk.
Yeah.
E-Musk,
I
right?
bet. By the way, Mr. Musk, you love being called Phileas Fogg, don't you?
I mean, it's comparable.
Yeah,
I love the dude myself. He might have flaws. He's definitely flawed, but I like his general
I like
shtick.
the cut of his jib.
Yes, the Musk jib. Let's say he wants to be the first to establish a 200 or greater population of people living permanently a kilometre under the sea. Let's start with some logistics. Where?
So, I think the immediate obvious answer is, I mean, if you wanted it to be, I think the location really matters because it depends on who the fund is. Because the two obvious answers, if he lives in America, he's ostensibly American. I know he's South African and has a larger background than that. So, but the obvious answer is somewhere in the great pond between Europe and America, as it's often
also called the Atlantic. Yes,
also known as the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, we're getting towards Andrew Ryan's. What's it called? The computer game when they lived under the ocean.
Oh, don't remember. Bioshock. Yes, of course.
Right.
So it's a little Bioshock, of course.
You can't get away from that. Yeah.
So Musk is our
Andrew Ryan.
Yeah.
Yes.
But also there's equally on the other side. It depends where you want to make your alliance because. It's equally, you could do it in the Pacific Ocean, but then there'll be lots of treaties with, places like Hawaii, which is a US territory, so it could be near Hawaii. But also, you've got to think about China, you've got to think about Japan, you've got to think about Russia on that other side.
That's true.
So, because there's going to be lots of treaties to make that so. So,
you also do have to think about the hard logistics of the undersea climate where you are. What's the water current like? What are the earthquake potentials and tsunamis like?
Yeah, and temperature, just for keeping it warm and power. Let's talk about how is this place going to be powered? Because
tidal power, unequivocally tidal power. He's holding out his finger to me.
There is another option.
There is another way.
There is another option because you're a kilometre below the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course there are tides there, but there might be a yet more powerful source.
Geothermal?
Precisely.
Okay, so vents perhaps?
It's either that or they have a nuclear power plant / fusion
you
power
might
plant.
as well. You can just call it from seawater immediately.
Yeah, so it depends. Do we have... are we talking...
How would Musk do it? I think Musk would... he'd be equally at home with the nuclear option as with the clean energy option.
So... The thing about geothermal is you're right there for geothermal. So all you need to do is drill down and at the bottom of your base, and you've got heat.
Done, yeah.
And it's quite warm down there. A lot of at the bottom of the sea. If a kilometre deep is right or wrong, we don't know. But if you're on the sea floor, right, you just drill right down.
Yeah.
And it's already there around the geothermal vents at the bottom of the sea. There is loads of life there where there isn't, in other places. So let's say. So geothermally powered.
I'm writing that, yes. We need to know how it's powered. Geothermal vents.
Yeah, vents.
And we can excuse ourselves. We don't have to go too much further. That, as you say, drill down, access that heat, access that power, done.
That's nothing more complicated.
Now, there are greater logistical challenges facing Musk's underwater colony.
Yeah, I want us to decide whether it's and maybe it will come later, whether it's Pacific or Atlantic. It's going to be one of the two.
Well, the East Atlantic coast, somewhere around like Martha's Vineyard.
I don't know where that is.
That's northeast coast of America. You will know it. Famously, that's where they filmed Jaws.
Ah, okay.
And one of the reasons they filmed Jaws there, not because it looks great, but because it's actually incredibly shallow out to a great distance beyond the coast. So you can build it a kilometre deep without having to worry about great drop-offs and trenches everywhere. So that's a possibility. However, the Atlantic is notoriously choppy as an ocean. I know you're underneath it, but you're still within it. The West Coast is warmer. However, what's the greater...
It's politically more dangerous.
And geologically more dangerous because of the earthquakes. You've got the San Andreas fault line, you've got earthquakes.
Yeah, but I'm thinking if they slap it right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, why would it be a problem?
In the middle?
Yeah.
It's going to... Well, here are some problems with that. A, very, very, very deep indeed. So how will you keep your city at a kilometre deep?
So, yeah, and how are you getting goods there and back?
Which is one of my other great logistical challenges. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, of course.
Now, the other big thing about being in the middle of the Pacific is you are as far away from civilization as you can be.
Yeah. Maybe that's the idea, though.
there was a recent incident with a young British lady. We have a lot of great British ladies who have done these around the world solo sails, where they sail around the world by themselves. For some reason, British women seem to be on the top of that game a lot of the time. But recently, one of these ladies got stranded, her boat capsized, and they had to rescue her. And as they said, it's very difficult because you are as far away as you can be. And an amazing fact about that is, if you're in the middle of that area of the Pacific Ocean, when the International Space Station goes overhead, those are the closest human beings to you than any other people. The people on the space station are closer to anyone on the planet.
But maybe that's the point.
Ah, okay. So you do want to be far away. You want.
I'm just thinking about that because he wants to go to Mars. I think you've destroyed your pen.
I just flicked out the biro part over my shoulder. I'll use yours if I need it. Thank you. So what were you saying?
Imagine the whole point of going to Mars is so you can rebuild a completely different culture, a completely different technology,
yes,
a completely different political system.
Yeah,
when you go to Mars, it's going to be totally different. So maybe something like a sea colony is a proto version of that.
I like that.
Where you've basically got an entire colony where you can experiment with a different political method, a different economical method, economic method,
and a different detachment to human beings that we haven't experienced before.
So we're talking about a village under the sea, not a city.
Not a city. Yes.
Maybe it will develop.
Yes,
yeah.
And the press would likely call it a city under the sea because it sounds better, but it's a hamlet or a village indeed.
Yeah. At best, a small town.
And this makes logical sense that someone like Musk would do this as a proving ground, as you say, for space exploration and space colonization.
Or for a sea lab.
Okay. So let's go back to that great logistical challenge of how do you get supplies out to those people a kilometre deep in the Pacific, and what supplies do they need? Could they self-sustain? Could they grow stuff for themselves? They can make their own power, we know that. Geothermal energy, done. Supplies, and how do they get fresh water? Do they desalinate?
I think basically you have to make it, otherwise you have to make them self-sufficient. Because if they're not self-sufficient, they are at the beck and call of outside powers.
Ah, okay.
Right? So if it's a company that supplies them, if it's a government that supplies them, that weakens this society. It makes it less... It makes it weak. It means basically they can ransom them and say, oh, do a deal with us, or you have to follow us, or you have to do what we say, or run your society like we say. If they're self-sufficient, they don't have to do that. And my imagining, if I am thinking as a Musk,
yes,
as a Musk,
yes,
then I imagine he wouldn't want that.
Okay.
Yeah. If I'm going to prove that this is possible, I want to prove that it's possible completely self-sufficiently. But obviously it's going to take stuff to get there, but I think once the stuff is there, you want to be as self-sufficient as physically. Obviously, you're going to probably have to bring in the occasional expert.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to have to send a lot of experts down there as part of the group, the first group.
The natural course of things, yeah.
Yeah, and you're probably going to need certain materials like... I don't know, steel?
Yeah, absolutely. Aluminium.
Yeah, aluminium, copper.
Carbon, yes.
Maybe you'll be able to mine some of it there at the base of the sea, but I think that's going to be very limited.
Yeah, very limited.
So I think the biggest import is going to be raw materials such as plastics, metals.
Synthetic materials, man-made materials.
Yeah, luxuries.
What about meat? Will they have lab-grown meat? Will they go vegetarian?
I would say, I like the idea of, since it's Musk, he's going to be out there on a limb and he's going to say, we're going to have lab-grown meat down there. I love that idea. So they're only going to have lab-grown meat down there. Okay, so...
Okay, let's say that, yeah. Lab-grown meat.
Lab-grown meat. They're going to obviously have farms.
Because it's very carbon inefficient to bring and import meat in, yes.
So, yeah, so they're going to have...
Vegetable farms.
Yeah, veg farms. Probably everywhere, and that's to help. That will also help with the oxygen reclamation as well. So they're probably going to... I'm going to say, let's go so far to say there are plants for oxygen reclamation. They're going to try and make it so most of the oxygen, apart from, of course, the safety level, is done purely by plants.
So a natural oxygen maintenance.
So
okay.
Purely, sustained by plants.
Now, I want to just quickly bring us back to the object du jour.
The object du jour, yes.
The
time,
watch.
yes.
Now, the pocket watch, which has started this whole idea of the Phileas Foggs of this world, the explorers, the counterculture idealists. We've used Musk as a useful template here, but let's be a bit more imaginative and let's lose Musk as our real world person. Let's think of a fictional person inspired by the idea of the pocket watch, the exploration society, that kind of culture. Let's create a person, man or woman, who would do this.
Somebody American, like Jeremiah Stamp.
I love that immediately. Jeremiah Stamp.
Okay, so Jeremiah, so that's our Musk.
Yeah, because Jeremiah has that old world, progressive colonization vibe, and Stamp is saying, I'm putting my stamp on the world.
So he's going out there to lead the colony. Yeah?
Who is he? How has he become the person he is?
So he's clearly a billionaire. Okay.
Yes, okay, billionaire, yes.
Yeah, rebel billionaire.
Jeremiah Stamp, rebel billionaire, like Max Stone from C-Lab 2021.
I was just thinking of that. So we've got Jeremiah Stamp, the rebel. So how did he make his billions?
Yes, good question. It's got to be different from Musk, so that's a really difficult question. Maybe he created the first mobile technology, like the first mobile phone, right? And like Nokia,
okay, so
they sold the first bunch of them, and then later on went by the wayside as the Apples and Samsungs took over. But he made all his money early on with the first mobile telecommunication devices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So and he's diversifying now because he's just shitting money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this Jeremiah Stamp. So who's he got around him? So I want to think his circle of familiars.
Circle of familiars, I like that. So there's got to be some fellow tycoons. Yeah. You've always got to have your tycoons.
Okay, so
let's say Jonathan Quizwitz.
Also a J name.
Yeah, Jonathan Quizwitz. Who is a Belgian-born British entrepreneur who pioneered gyroscopic satellite navigation systems. Is that specific enough for you?
Yeah, that's ridiculously specific. So gyroscopic, why gyroscopic?
Because space travel, space navigation for manned space flight or satellites cannot be done without gyroscopic navigation.
That we're doing under the water.
I'm just saying that's just where he comes from.
Okay, so
he's familiar with these ideas of travelling out into a dangerous environment and finding your way there. So what Jonathan Quizwitz brings to the table is an ability to centrify oneself in a alien environment. So being able to say, where are we right now? Where are we going? And how do we establish the world around us, the physical world around us? How do we how do we keep track of the sea currents? How do we keep track of, thermal variations in the water around us, and rising and falling water levels as well could be a big thing. So Jonathan Quizwitz, he's got that.
So he's got
control.
A bit of tech know-how as well.
Tech know-how through the eye.
Because you can imagine, I want to imagine what their plan is for. So first of all, how are they going to get the city, the village, the town? How are they going to get this this underwater base there? How are they going to get the materials to the place?
I think what they do is that they... what's more logistically appropriate? Is it to build underwater pods, habitation pods, onshore, and then ship them offshore and sink them? Or do you think it'd be simpler to ship the raw materials to the ocean, to the middle of the ocean, build these prefab pods quickly, and then sink them? I'd imagine it's easier to build them onshore and ship them offshore and sink them.
So I think it's a combination of both, actually.
Okay.
So I think I like the idea of a modular sort of format.
You like the space station?
Yeah. So maybe they build a number of modules, maybe some inflatable or expandable as well, so they're not the full size until they get down there. Or you take them there and then you expand them and then you put them down.
Yeah.
You construct them on the ship and then like an aircraft. So they're going to need a big old boat like an aircraft carrier style monstrosity to make this happen.
Okay.
So that's a few billion.
It's a few bill. Cool few bill.
So that I can imagine, or I mean, they could just shoot stuff down there, like just drop it, like. So I imagine it's potentially made from. So you could imagine like loads of pods. I like your thought of pods that you just drop down there, and then basically people or robots go down there and start assembling. So
yes. And
start bringing the pods together, strapping those bits together, joining them up, and then turning them into things. So maybe they're not. Some of them are purpose built. So you'll probably send the power station's probably the core,
Yes.
the geothermal point. So that's probably the first thing they have to do, and that probably has to be pretty much built on site. So that's probably the first thing you're going to do is get a whole probably build an oil rig above it, whole thing first, effectively.
That's the power station.
So if not an actual oil rig,
Yeah, but it's only serving as their power
an
station.
above sea platform that then can act like, I guess, like a space elevator that takes things down. So you bring things to this above sea platform that can be like the port.
And I was about to say that I'd love that to be the entry point for anyone coming to this undersea society. Is you have to go to the surface port, which, as you say, is a kind of floating rig.
Yeah, so sea
you
platform.
Sign in there, you talk to the admin people there, and then if you're lucky, they'll send up what's the transport between the surface and the bottom?
I imagine it'll have to be fairly simple. And
like a space elevator, but going down.
I imagine
it's
just like, it's almost like a glorified diving bell.
Yeah, love it.
Maybe
simple.
Really nice and posh, like the Dragon capsule is fancy inside.
Is it self-propelled, or does it kind of like a gondola? Does it move along its line?
I think self-propelled is a bad idea, I think.
Okay, so it just moves along the line.
Yeah, I think it moves along the line, is powered by I assume by the geothermal energy. It's just there's engines at the top and at the bottom.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Pulls it up, pushes it down, whatever.
So it's got an above surface presence. So obviously you could destroy this above surface presence, but all that would destroy is access.
Exactly.
So they'll have other ways out. So what
are the other ways out? What are the emergency surface vehicles?
So of course they'll have a submarine port. Is something you want to build there.
Cool.
Even if it's really small and it's just a matter of a tube that connects to submarines, like an airlock that can go out to submarines, but maybe eventually it would expand into a full submarine docking area. But you could have that. I don't think that's too...
Let's ask ourselves. Let's try and work out. So we've got our fictional Jeremiah Stamp, who's kind of fulfilling this challenge to build a 200 population or greater undersea habitation.
So maybe he's racing Musk to do it.
Yeah, well, let's take Musk as our real world equivalent.
Yeah.
How quickly could Elon, or Elon as people also say, do this in the real world? How quickly do you think he could do it?
I'd say it's
5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
10 years at a minimum.
10 years at a minimum?
In my opinion.
Okay.
Because you've got the planning, which will take years.
Yeah.
And then you've got to then build prototypes of the modules and test them.
That's true.
Will they sustain the pressure, water pressure?
Yes.
Will they sustain getting built down there? How are they easy to set up and build and expand?
And what's are they watertight?
Yes.
Are they rust resilient from seawater, salt water, that kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah.
A similar question then. Do you think we could actually do this in the real world right now? Do you think we're equipped to do it?
I think we have the technology.
Yeah.
It's a matter of finding the funding.
Why haven't we then? Why don't we live under the sea?
The same reason we don't have fusion power is because it's a matter of will. Because we know it's scientifically possible. There's nothing in our current technology that says building an undersea settlement is impossible. It is massive. The logistics of it financially are just tremendous. Technologically at large, as I say, the testing will take hundreds of scientists.
I'd say socially and culturally very difficult as well. To take those people and put them into a life hitherto totally essentially unlived by humans other than those who live in submarines.
And even before this technology, this one, you're going to have to do tests of the modules below water with people, with aquanauts or whatever you want to call them. So I think it's going to be a 10-year project. I can't see it being less.
Who would they belong to politically? Would they be part of America? Would they be their own society? Would they, like Sealand, would they be able to state sovereignty?
If I was Jeremiah Stamp...
Yes. We'd all like to be him.
I would say you're going to try and make it as independent as you can get away with.
Yeah.
But that might be difficult. So let's assume he's American. Let's assume he's like an American tech billionaire, whatever, as we've described. So how easy would it if the American government, this challenge was known to everybody, but most people didn't believe it was possible. But it started to be possible. What do you think the American government would say about your jurisdiction? What would they say?
They'd say you're part of the American jurisdiction if you're out there in the Pacific.
Would you be a territory? Or would you be a state?
Well, they do have these very weird relationships with their overseas territories, don't they? Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, I believe. I could be wrong there, but they're overseas American territories with none of the rights of American citizens, which is a really odd way of doing it. But when you're that far geographically culturally and socially detached from mainland America, de facto you'd kind of be able to live life as you'd want to under the sea, but you would be beholden to American laws and American regulations, which, if I'm being honest, is probably the best of both worlds. You have the backing of one of the most powerful nations on the planet, but you also are able to kind of do what you want to a large extent.
So you're saying it's kind of a very laissez-faire...
Pretty laissez-faire, yeah.
Sort of relationship. You'd hope. My only trouble is they're going to want, primo, we're going to want anything you discover down there, the technologies you build, we're going to want first
and
dibs.
Almost bragging rights to say that that's our colony, it's an American colony. Which, for someone like Jeremiah Stamp, you'd probably give it to them. Sure, you can claim it's American.
Yes.
It doesn't matter because we know that we are independent of ourselves.
Yes, and it's not like it's... So, I guess the American military can just drop depth charges on it if
they really wanted to.
If they were...
So let's talk about defence.
Yes.
What's to stop people dropping depth charges on them?
Well, they've got the oil rig above, so I imagine it's full of fucking... it's covered in missiles.
Sure. And what about a kind of mine system where you have tethers attached to the seafloor, and at the top of these long tethers are countermeasures, let's say.
Yeah,
they are designed to explode depth charges when they come near.
Oh, so almost like you could make effectively a web or a net.
Yes, like the Star Wars defense program in America.
Yeah. So it's almost like a bunch of chaff that you can release as well.
Yes, waterborne chaff.
Yes.
Which I loved as an idea immediately as soon as I said it, yeah. But you do have to think about defence, you never know.
Yeah, because that I think that, that's the first duty of a nation, pretty much,
to
defend its citizens. As much as many people believe that we should have no war, in order to have peace and have no war, you need to be able to stop twats coming in and trying to kill you.
Yes, it's no coincidence that there's only one major developed nation in the world that doesn't have a standing army.
I really believe that Jeremiah Stamp's overall plan is to be truly independent here.
Yes.
Right? So he'll take the Americans' thing, but
the
ultimately, as soon as they want to push too much control, he's going to want to be able to secede. Right,
lock themselves up
at a time of his choosing. So he's going to want to prepare loads of defensive measures so that they can't stop.
Love this as a story. Who is Jeremiah Stamp's nemesis, rival, or antagonist in this situation?
I almost think it's got to be a rival in the race to build the underwater colony.
Cool. So it's more of a more personal enemy.
I mean, the obvious answer is it's like a Chinese government program that's trying to.
Yes, no individualism, no personality, pure control.
Yeah, because that's much more sort of the character, at least of the Chinese government, of course.
But to keep it personal, let's say that it's a single man.
Yes.
Who has been charged by the Chinese government, to make this happen. So his motivations are built into not letting down his government, because he knows that's pretty much a death sentence, quite literally. But also, like any of these people, embodied in the silver pocket watch ethos, they want to do it for the sake of having done it and having achieved it.
So maybe like a Chinese engineer.
I like that. Yeah, a lowly engineer who's been elevated to this grand
because
project.
He's a genius.
Let's give him a name. Now, obviously, it's easier to name someone like Jeremiah Stamp than it is for us Westerners to identify a Chinese person. But let's try. Let's say Shu. Okay, Shu. Shu Zhang. Shu Zhang Pao.
Okay, Zhang Pao.
Because Pao has that blaffy, aggressive element.
Xu Zhang Pao?
Xu Zhang Pao is the Chinese engineer tasked by his glorious government to create their own competing Chinese underwater city, which would be situated probably in the China Sea, the South China Sea maybe.
Yeah, maybe either that or the Indian Ocean.
Well, actually, no, let's put it this way. The South China Sea is a much argued, conflicted area with Japan, America...
Yes.
And then countries to the further of the south, Indonesia, Philippines,
even Australia to some extent, and
so
Britain even.
There you go. So China's ability to maintain a hidden underwater colony in that region.
Oh, I like the idea that theirs is hidden.
Theirs is hidden. No one knows where it's going to be.
Yeah, hidden colony. Yeah, that's cool.
Yes, they build theirs on the coast. And then it's partially sunk and dragged out by submarines, hidden, and then sunk where you can't see it.
Yeah, so they kind of partially build it, and then maybe theirs is powered by a nuclear power.
Theirs is nuclear. They do not give a shit.
So theirs is movable.
So their colony is movable. to wherever the current most hotspot is in the South China Sea.
Yeah, yes, and
That's wicked.
They use it as a kind of, it could be almost be a military base as well.
So really, the Stamp City is ideological. The Zhang Pao City is more strategic. Yes,
it's more
absolutely.
More of a strategic thing. So let's get, since we've started with geopolitics a little bit there immediately with the rival. So with Xu Zhang Pao.
Yes. Excuse us, China. Sorry.
Yeah, apologies for our poorly named, but Jeremiah Stamp isn't exactly.
It isn't. Yes, totally normal. It's very
silly. So I want to imagine. So Jeremiah Stamp, when he's defining this sort of individualistic, sort of like free, almost like libertarian society undersea. So what is the politics of his little society of 200? His first 200, let's say.
Yeah, Stampinism, I guess. It would be built around
Stampinism.
The West is very much a cult of personality type place. The Chinese have more of a cult of their own political ideology. That's
society almost.
That's what it's built on. Yes, for us, it's built on individuals like Trump. Even Theresa May in the UK is her own cult of personality, but it's very weak. Actually, Jeremy Corbyn has a stronger cult of personality.
He is a cult of personality.
He's a weaker political manipulator, but he has a stronger cult of personality.
So he's a human being.
So Stamp and his colony are built on his personal principles. And let's bring it back to the silver pocket watch that started this whole thing off. He's a big individualist.
Yeah, he cares about. I like him having the Phileas Fogg cares about time.
Yes, cares about political, social structures, time.
So maybe talking of the pocket watch as well. So maybe it's the fact that he's kind of ordering the place. So it's because he's the guy with him. I imagine him as he's building gyroscopes, so he's quite organised. This is Jonathan Quizwitz.
Quizwitz, yes.
He's a very organised, sort of interested person. So perhaps he thinks that when he's going to reorganise society completely down there, so he's going to change the length of the day, right?
I was thinking about that. Yes.
Do the length of the week? Do they 10-day week, 5-day week?
To the week, to the day. They don't need to.
So I think he's going to want to completely change all of those things. So let's think about how long is the day in his terms.
Good call. So, a kilometre deep, you probably aren't really getting any sunlight down there.
Nothing.
So you really can decide on whatever length of day you want.
Basically, they're going to decide on...
Let's actually start with something a bit bigger than the day, the week, right?
Okay.
Because this is something we discuss a lot in modern society, is how long should the week be, the working week and otherwise. So, rather than a 7-day week, let's make it base 10.
I like base 10.
Or base 12, which is our time base.
I like base 10 because let's make everything metric.
It's really easy, yes. So it's a 10-day week.
10-day week.
You have 5 days on and 5 days off.
Ooh.
Right?
Alternate days, though.
That would actually be more annoying than just a simple 5 day on, 5 day off. Because then you'd be like, I'm working, I'm not. I'm working, I'm not. Maybe some people have to do day on, day off. But for most average workers... You do 5 days on, 5 days off. That's your working week. So you're always recharged by the time you come back round. So a 10-day week, done. What is the length of the day?
I like the idea of keeping it base 10.
Base 10, yeah.
So, like,
could be a 20-hour day.
30-hour day or a 20-hour day.
Ooh, interesting. 30-hour day would allow you to have, let's say, 10 hours of sleep, 10 hours of work, 10 hours of leisure. Simple
30-hour day, then.
30-hour day. I'd like that. I'd do that. 10 hours of sleep. I love 10 hours of sleep. That's my perfect amount of sleep.
10 sleep. And he's like... So he's planning this. He's probably got a load of scientists to back him up, whether it's scientifically valid or not. So this is the best way. So 10 hours work, 10 hours play.
Yeah. Lovely. What about when you have 5 days off, are you still beholden to a 30-hour day of 10 hours sleep, 10 hours leisure, and maybe 10 hours of... self-betterment.
Oh, I like that.
Right? So you're obliged to better yourself and society.
Not working, you are committed to self-betterment.
Or betterment in general. So either those extra 10 hours are spent helping society, so you go out and you maybe pick up litter from the underwater park pod. Pick up litter in a park pod. Or, if you're engineeringly minded, you help the engineers develop more power cell structures.
So you just work on whatever your passion is that you think will better the society.
Or you better yourself. If you're not bettering society, you have to better yourself. So, like, even if it's something like learn to juggle, learn a foreign language, learn a musical instrument. Yes, if you're not bettering your society, you have to better yourself. Because in a way...
I'm liking this Jeremiah Stamp. I want to live in his...
yeah, but in a way, isn't it a bit too...
much
prescribed?
Yeah, just a touch.
A touch too prescribed.
A touch.
Yeah, right? But that's always the case.
And I want to sort of keep the time aspect a little bit in our heads a little bit. So because in the modern world at the moment these days, people are very monitored on time. You got to you got to produce X amount of stuff in X amount of time.
Even your leisure time.
Yeah. So what's his theory for breaking out of that? Because obviously he wants to change the world. He wants to make the world a better place.
Okay, that's cool.
So how do you think he thinks we should change the work? The way we work, the way we live, so we're not so worried about it. Obviously, he's changing to a 30-hour day, to a 10-hour week. How else is he helping us not worry about time?
So maybe it's built on that idea of betterment. So your free time, rather than in our current modern world where free time is spent recovering from work.
Oh God, I need a lion. I've worked so hard
this week, which is true for so many people. Or that time being spent for other people, like, I've got to go and see my parents this weekend. I've got a bit of time off, that kind of thing. Time is only spent bettering yourself or bettering the people around you. So time is only ever a constriction when it tells you that you've got X amount of it to better yourself or go back to work, which is, of course, bettering things around you regardless. So betterment, improvement, progression, that is the Stamp ethos. So
the idea is you're not trying to fill time, you're trying to...
make the most of it.
Make the most of your time. Okay,
yes.
That's good. I like your angle there. I sort of philosophically, it just occurred to me that effectively what he's building here and how he might sell it to the world and to potential colonists, and we need to start talking about those, this is effectively the new Atlantis.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so he's building kind of a new Atlantis world, or a new...
Well, actually, since Atlantis never existed in the first place, and an intellectual of Stamp's quality would say, we want to create Atlantis. It's a myth that we know had never actually existed, so why not create it? Do we not create art to spur ourselves to create the reality that the art prescribes? That's science fiction's job, certainly.
So he's trying to create a place of survival, a place where we're gaining lots, a place where...
And human endeavour and human progression. What's the point of living if you're not progressing? That's the Stamp ethos for sure. And I like that idea. It's a very cool idea from the initial challenge of who's the first to build their underwater city, to someone saying, what, it's not just a challenge to be met, it's a dream to be fulfilled. Right?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So in terms of a dream to be fulfilled, so he wants to make this kind of a bit of a utopia, right?
It is. You can't get away from that. You're building an underwater utopia.
So I want to start talking about the colonists. So who might go?
To be honest, I would.
I mean...
when they said a few years ago, who wants to go to Mars?
Mars 1, which collapsed under its own weight.
The kind of slightly fraudulent reality.
Yeah, the actual company. There's a charitable foundation that still exists. The actual company Mars 1 collapsed.
Yeah.
Basically, having ripped off a whole bunch of people. Which is really sad, but you probably shouldn't have given your money to them.
Yeah. Let's put it this way: if I'm happy enough to go to Mars, which is, as people say at the moment, a one-way ticket. If you go, you ain't coming back. You will live and die on Mars.
Yeah.
Then I should certainly be happy to go and live underwater, because that's still on this planet. And if I really needed to, I could go up to the surface and go back home and see my loved ones again and be unscared. So I would do it. I think if someone of the ilk of Musk or our fictional Stamp was to rally people and invite people to say, who wants to be the first humans?
Well, he's actually got money and a company behind him.
Yes, exactly. So there's a cohesive, concrete believability
and the
to
fact
it.
that you're fighting the Chinese to get there.
I think you get a mix of explorers and travellers. I love travel. I love seeing the world. So that's the part of my personality that would attach.
So yeah, and any kind of daredevil sort of
Daredevil.
like anyone who's like a skydiver or something like that.
Risk takers, pioneers.
But also, of course, engineers, scientists. Unavoidable in this circumstance.
Yes, and psychologists who want to see what it's like people living there.
Well, no, I'm going to say they're going to need psychiatrists, psychologists.
Yes. Therapists.
They're going to need therapists of all kinds because of these the
different environment living in. Yeah.
And
how would you cope with it? Literally, how do you think if you had to live for a year underwater in a new pod city, how would it affect you?
Quite honestly, I think I'd love the shit out of it.
Would there be a part of it that would react inexplicably negatively to it?
I'm not claustrophobic in that sense.
Nor am I, but socially claustrophobic, there might be something like that.
I've never, personally for me, that's not a huge deal. I imagine I get annoyed, but as I say, as we discussed previously in a previous episode, I'm quite happy being on my own when it needs when that needs to occur. So I think it would, especially if you lived there for a year and you knew that it was only a year, then you were like...
Yeah, if you knew there was an end to it. Like... I
think it'd be fine.
The Scott Kellys of this world who lived on the space station for a year in order to produce scientific data.
Obviously, the lack of... If my family came with me, that would be very different, Yeah,
would that be a good or bad thing? Would that be worse or better?
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you had your wife with you...
That's what I mean.
Great. If you had, the actual family, parents and siblings...
Oh, my parents, no. Jesus Christ.
That would be much worse.
No,
yes.
that would be 1,000 times worse. But eventually, because a society will have to work like that. But if you're a pioneer, I think, just like anybody, I think I could handle it. And I think just because of the majesty of the event, of being part of the first sea city or the first sea colony... That would be amazing, and the fact that you get to experience things nobody had ever experienced before. I don't think I could say no to such a offer.
That's a great way of putting it. I don't think I could say no if the opportunity came a knocking. So, let's wrap things up, and let's do one of the most difficult things, and put a name to this. We can either name the event in history, like the plague, the Black Death in Europe, or we can name it as a story, the story of Stamp and the undersea colonists. What would you call it?
I'd actually hit two other completely different angles on what we should name. So my initial thing is we name the competition.
Yes, the actual thing that spurred this on.
The other thing is we name Stamp's Glorious City.
Or we can just give an abstract name, whatever we want. But I like your approach here. Yes, the competition or the city.
Because either we sort of call it, like Neo Atlantis, or the competition is called the Create Atlantis competition, or the build it. What would you call the competition? Because I do think that's kind of more interesting.
Yes, the New Atlantis Prize, I'd call it.
Oh, yes.
Like the X Prize.
I like the New Atlantis Prize.
Okay,
yes.
New Atlantis Prize.
Yeah. So, what else? What would Stamp call his city?
I mean, we've kind of done ourselves a favour by calling him Stamp, because you're kind of putting a stamp on something, right?
Yeah.
Even then, it's actually still quite difficult to do, because it could be named after him. He could be a bit more...
I think he wouldn't do that.
No, he'd want to give it a cool, progressive
Well, let's do it like
name.
Musk. How does Musk name his things?
Well, like the Boring Company, which is a play on words.
And like SpaceX, right? Which
which
named after
cool, but it also says what it does.
So I think we should say what it does, which is kind of like Sea City, or like...
Let's say if it wasn't the Pacific Pod Paradise.
I like that, the Pacific...
Maybe not Paradise, that's a bit too on the nose.
I kind of like Pacific Pod Paradise.
Pod Paradise, everyone loves alliteration, right?
The 3 Ps. So there we go. Okay, so in order to win the New Atlantis prize, Jeremiah Stamp tries to build the Pacific Pod Paradise.
Built on geothermal energy and the principles of betterment and improvement.
Yes, and basically rethinking the way we think about time, specifically based on our wonderful object. Okay,
yes.
Rethinking time. And I guess it might even look a little bit like this. This does look like a little bit of a dome.
Yes, maybe every citizen would be awarded their own Stamp pocket watch.
Oh, that's got 30 hours
30-hour day, yes.
It's got the 10-day week marked on it.
Built into the little dial, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it's if we want to go old school, it's got they've got these proper wrist...
like the Pip-Boy
braces. Like the
world.
Pip-Boy, yes.
Okay, that's a great place to finish then.
Yeah, all right.
So, thank you everyone for your time today. We're really glad you came along to listen to us expose the ideas of underwater colonies and whatever.
Thank you so much for popping along. Again, we really enjoy you guys coming in, letting us know what you think, of course. So let us know what you think of Jeremiah Stamp's underwater city. Would you live there?
Yes, that's what I want to know. Would you live in an underwater city?
Do you think it's even possible to build it?
Yes, and if so, why haven't we done so already? Just like moon bases, why has it not happened yet?
Or should we not do it? Is it wrong to do it?
Answers on a postcard, as we say in the UK.
Yes.
You'll find us on iTunes, YouTube.
Yes, at our website, www.thespeculationstation.com.
.com has 7 M's at the end of com, by the way.
But literally it doesn't. But
you know how to use the internet.
Yeah, just find us, Google us, use DuckDuckGo if you're a real person.
Oh, Ask Jeeves. That's what we're all using these days. Tell your friends about us, tell your family about us, tell no one about us if you want to keep a lovely little secret.
Anyway, cheers, well done. Okay, to the underwater city, to New Atlantis.
To the Pacific Pod Paradise.
To the Pacific Pod Paradise.
In a heartbeat. We'll see you next time for a new object and new speculation.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Speculation Station.